ॐ निरञ्जनं नित्यम् अनन्तरूपं भक्तानुकम्पाधृतविग्रहं वै ईशावतारं परमेशमिड्यं तं रामकृष्णं शिरसा नमामि. Namaste everyone. Welcome to our study of the Vedanta lectures of Swami Vivekananda. We are studying the lecture on the Vedanta delivered in 1897, November in Lahore. This is our fourth class. For those who want to revise, you can to be able to see these recordings, both audio and video. I put for two there, third one I will put after this. Before we proceed or continue from where we had left off, are there any questions, any comments, any clarification? If you have, this is the time. And then, of course, in between. No, so it's all good. Let us just have a look. Where were we? Okay, I think here, Paramatman, the indestructible self. This little bit of revision and then we continue. So, Swami Vivekananda is introducing this subject of the self, the Atman, the unchanging or unchangeable substratum beyond the changing universe. The word Jagat in Sanskrit and Hindi, we call this word Jagat. It comes from the Sanskrit root word gam, which means to move, that which is constantly changing. So this world is transitory, is constantly in flux. And there is something which is unchanging, and that unchangeable, indestructible aspect of our self is called the Atman. So Swamiji says, next we will come to another questions. Apart from those arguments which only rise in the external world, the arguments in support of design, that is, who created this external world, who created matter, etc. The idea is, assumption is there that somebody created, there is a creator. The idea here is to know truth only from the inner nature of man, and the question arises just in the same way as it arose about the soul. So the Vedantic sages, unlike the others who went looking for the truth in the external world, they turned inwards, trying to explore the inner space or the inner nature of man. Taking for granted that there is a soul, unchangeable in each man, which is neither the body or mind or the body, there is still a unity of idea among the souls, a unity of feeling, of sympathy. How is it possible that my soul can act upon your soul? Where is the medium through which it can work? Where is the medium through which it can act? How is it that I can feel anything about your souls? What is that? What is it that is in touch both with your soul and my soul? Therefore, there is a metaphysical necessity of admitting another soul, for it must be a soul which acts in contact with all the different souls in and through matter. One soul which covers and interpenetrates all the infinite number of souls in the world, in and through which they live, in and through which they sympathize and love and work for one another. And this universal soul is called Paramatman, the Lord of the universe. Again, it follows that because the soul is not made of matter, since it is spiritual, it cannot obey the laws of matter. It cannot be judged by the laws of matter. It is therefore unconquerable, birthless, deathless, and changeless. You'll find, if you want to see a text, a scripture, where this concept is taught, look at chapter 15 of the Bhagavad Gita. right towards the end. Sri Krishna is telling there are two types of beings. Dva imo purusho loke shara akshara evacha. There are two types of beings in this world. In this, shara means that which is constantly changing, akshara which is unchanging. So, where the three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas, interact, mutate, they create various forms. Those three gunas, when they are in a balanced form, that is called avyakta, unmanifest. Everything is potentially present there. That's called that's Prakriti in its balanced state. So it says, Dvaimosh Purusho Loke, Kshara Akshara Evacha, Shara Sarvani Bhutani, Aksharam. So Shara means Sarvani Bhutani, all these beings. Aksharam is something beyond those things. Then he says, beyond these two, mutable and unmutable, there is another being, which is the Paramatman, which Sri Krishna says, I am that being. And as I am beyond the Shara and Akshara, therefore I am the Supreme Lord. And that's why the source or cause of both of this. And this idea you can study and have a look in the almost the last 3-4 verses of the chapter 15, Purushottam Yoga of the Bhagavad Gita. So let's look at this again. What is Swamiji tries to rationalize. So the thing, Vedanta is a philosophy. Something was experienced, some entity was experienced by the spiritual sages. When they try to come and communicate their experience, they create a framework of words, terminologies with which they try to express their subjective experience. Not that they will succeed all the time. And when they attempt to put it in a rational way, you'll find that struggle is there. So you'll find in this language, Swami Vivekananda is also trying to put that. Let us see anyway how he approaches it. He says, apart from those old arguments which only rise in the external world, that is the arguments in support of design, the design theory, the creator, that is who created this external world. So like the modern scientists say, well, there's no creator, they say, but it came out of that big bang, something that was a singularity exploded, and then slowly it became cooled down and became more and more complex matter, and living forms and life came and consciousness came and all that. But in the original source out of which it came, if that was unconscious, then how can consciousness come out of that? Anyway, so they approach it from that. The idea here in this Vedantic or subjective approach is to know truth only from the inner nature of man. That means we go within ourselves, beyond our physical dimension, Sthula Sharira, beyond our mental, Sukshma Sharira, beyond our causal, Karan Sharira, beyond all this, and not know something, the Atman as an objective thing, but as a subjective. We become it. And that is an experience in which the ego, the Noah, also disappears. But that experience uh, um, uh, of who we are, that doesn't disappear. It is not that we become nothing and void. We are aware of it. It's just that that experience is not captured by the mind, because the mind also does not exist there, and the experience or the ego is not there, but it is a positive experience. So the question arises just as in the same way as it rose about the soul. What is it? Taking for granted there is a soul, which is unchangeable in each person. So this is they realize the Atman nature, which is fine, and each one has got a Atman, they say. But is there something beyond this, or are we forever distinct as Atmans from each other? So they say we start with that assumption, and this Atman, what's the nature? It's not the body or the mind. Then Swamiji says there is still a unity of idea among the souls, a unity of feeling, of sympathy. You feel a sense of oneness. So if somebody asked you, what are the two salient pillars of Vedanta? The answer is one, the divinity of the soul. That means the Atman is a divine spiritual entity, eternal, immortal. That is a fundamental idea. If you take that out, say there's no Atman, then that is such a philosophy would be called Gnostic, where it does not acknowledge the existence of the Atman. So that is the first principle, the divinity of the soul. Remember this. And the second principle is oneness of existence. So what they say is, look, apparently all these waves, which we are separately, but we are all one in the ocean. So there is an entity which is a universal self, which is Brahman, which is the supreme being, of which each Atman apparently is a manifestation, just like a wave appears out of the ocean, takes a name and form, and the wave can disappear by merging into the ocean. Yet the ocean is the permanent, indivisible, one unity, entity. So the question is, how is it possible that if this question, what is the basis of that? It's in response to uh, these questions. How is it possible that my soul can act upon your soul? So people interact physically or mentally through communication or spiritually. That means there has to be some common medium that connects them. Where is the medium through which it can work? Where is the medium through which it can act? How is it I can feel anything about your souls? People feel empathy, kindness, and all those things, suffering. The more they're connected, the more they feel for others. That's why you will see in the lives of realized souls, they intensely feel for the suffering of others. And there's tremendous amount of compassion in them, because it's not that they are kind and nice to somebody else. They feel their oneness with everyone. And you'll find that in the great teachers, in the lives and actions of the great Buddha, he was called the compassionate one, Christ, who was ready to sacrifice his own life for the good of the whole world. You'll see that tremendous sacrifice for the welfare of others. Their whole individuality that we sort of I sense, which is in a normal ignorant person's identified with one physical body, they have long shattered that individuality. Swami Vivekananda says this individuality that we feel within ourselves as the I and all that, the personality, is not the real individuality. The real individuality is the indivisibility. That means that which is indivisible, the ocean, the supreme being. That, and we are truly individuals when we have become one with that supreme being. So the questions are, what is it that is in touch both with your soul and my soul? Therefore, there is a metaphysical necessity of admitting another soul, for it must be a soul which acts in contact with all the different souls and in and through matter. So that supreme being is in the macrocosm level, the sum total of all the souls, but as a personality, is called the Ishvara. There are two streams of manifestations. One is the microcosm, the other is the macrocosm. The microcosm is at the physical level, for the sake of knowing some Vedanta terminology, in the microcosmic level is called the Vishwa. That means my physical body, my being. But the sum total of all matter, all beings, all bodies throughout this planet Earth and the universe, it is called Virat. Virat is the universal physical universe. In the mental level, that is the mind and feelings and all that. In the microcosm, it is called Tejasa. Tejas means is Tejas, full of light and effulgence, greater manifestation of consciousness, intelligence is there. And at the macrocosmic level, it is called Mahat or Hiranyagarbha or the cosmic mind, or in the personality format Brahma. That's the universal cosmic mind, sum total of all the minds. So at the microcosm, it's called Tejasa. The macrocosm is called Mahat or Hiranyagarbha. And then at the consciousness level, at the spiritual level, third dimension, in the microcosmic level, it is called prajna, means that which is shining with light or consciousness. And at the sum total of all this individual consciousness is called the Ishvara. So we come across that terminology that Ishvara is the supreme being, Parameshvara. He is the controller of everything, because just like the relationship between my whole physical being and a single cell, likewise, the sum total of all beings is the Ishvara, and therefore we are all parts of that Supreme Being. And that is why the concept of devotion and prayer and all that comes, because by taking refuge in the Supreme Being, by His will, we are delivered from this limited state of existence, the Jivatma state, and we can experience our oneness with the Paramatma state, and that is what is called Mukti, liberation. I will share with you PowerPoint later on, which shows those things in a in the terminology I've been using. Yes, Shimen.
Yes, Swamiji, can you explain the difference between Brahma and Ishvara? I'm a bit confused. Are they the same or not?
So there are two words, Brahma and
Brahma.
Brahman. Brahma is the one of the trinities, the creator being. Okay, in the Hinduism philosophy, Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara. The one who creates this whole universe. He is the creator being. Brahman is the highest consciousness, the universal consciousness. It adds Brahman, Brahman. You will see that word there. So Brahman is the universal consciousness. So Ishvara is the being above this Brahma. Okay, let me just see if I can pull that video that shows. One minute. Remember one of those PowerPoints I had shown in the Sunday class? That's the one I'm trying to fetch. Yeah, okay. Yeah, there. Okay, so here is this chart. Okay.
Thank you, Swamiji.
So at the gross level here, the physical world, there are two vertical columns. One is the macrocosm, the other is the microcosm. All right. So Vishwa is the microcosm physical level. Virat is the macrocosm physical level. Hiranyagarbha is Brahma, okay, the creator being, as a personality. And Ishvara is the sum total of all the prajnaya. So the sum total of all the microcosm is this first column, macrocosm. And so Atman is the consciousness in the microcosm level, and the sum total of all that is called the Brahman. So the ultimate reality is Brahman. That Brahman, when it is perceived through time, space, and causation, okay? So Ishvara is Brahman appearing through time, space, and causation. Because the ultimate reality is Brahman. Everything is an appearance. An appearance happens in time, space, and causation in Maya. And the highest reading of Brahman is what, by the human mind, is called Ishvara. Below that, bit more materialized, we will call that being Hiranyagarbha or Brahma. And this physical world that we see is again that same Brahman, but experienced as this physical world when we are perceiving it through the five senses. So it's like Brahman is the rope, and these are all different snakes, appearances on that substratum of Brahman. Is it okay now there, Shiman?
Oh, yes, that's very helpful. Thank you, Swamiji.
Okay, I'll put this in the what's in the group. Yeah. Then let's go back to. Okay, so make it bigger. Okay, so let's. Okay, so is that okay, everyone? Any questions there? Any clarification? Please feel free to ask like that. Shimon asks. It's good to have those discussions. Next, we come to the little bit of the nature of this Atman. So, Swami Vivekananda quotes from chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita. What are the qualities? What is this Atman? You see, this Atman knowledge was missing in the teachings of Sunish. You can switch off your video. Yeah, so this Atman nature was missing from the knowledge of of Arjuna, and the first thing that Sri Krishna does is to introduce that dimension as the fundamental principle, and he explains what is the nature of the self. Achedyoyam, adayoyam, akledoyam, asoshasha, nityam sarvagata sthanu achaloyam sanatana. So this self, the weapons cannot pierce, fire cannot burn it, water cannot wet it, air cannot dry it. And what is it? Nityam, changeless, all pervading, unmoving, immovable, eternal is this self of man. So, this is the divine being that is there. So, when we say we are spiritual beings having a human experience, we acknowledge that there is this substratum on which other dimensions are projected. We learn according to the Gita that and the Vedanta that this individual self is also Vibhu. Vibhu is a Sanskrit word. It means all pervading, limitless, beyond space. Space cannot capture it. It's beyond space and beyond time and type of concept. Formless, all pervading, interpenetrating everything, that is called Vibhu. And its opposite is Anu. Anu means it's limited, it's finite, it appears in time, space. So these are two concepts. Anu means limited. Vibhu means infinite. So according to the Gita and the Vedanta, that this universal or individual self is also Vibhu. That means even though we experience this self within us, ourselves, as something that is defined by the parameters of this body and the limits of knowledge in the mind, it is really Vibhu, but because of the limitations imposed by this body-mind complex, it appears to be Anu. So, for example, you take, children play this, make the soul bubbles in there. So you blow those bubbles, and you see these bubbles in the air, which is sort of a amount of space in air that is enclosed by the thin film of moisture, water. So how did and we define and we call that a bubble? Bubble is that space defined by the boundary of that film of water. But when the bubble bursts, what happens to the space? Well, it becomes one with the universal space. And so it is likewise when this body mind is assumed, that universal being is then experienced to be limited as defined by this Maya, name, time, space, and causation. In that way, you can think. So this individual self is really Vibhu. And according to Kapila, it is omnipresent, means everywhere. Of course, there are sects in India which hold that the self is Anu. So there's so many schools of philosophy. And some of them say, no, no, it's not Vibhu, it's not all pervading, but it's Anu. But it's infinitely small. But what they mean is that Anu in manifestation, its real nature is Vibhu, all pervading. That means space is space all the time. Now, if you have bigger bubbles, smaller bubbles, they just are sort of talking about the boundary that defines the thing. But space cannot be divided. It is there, all pervading all the time. So the human mind requires boundaries. You'll find that, like you build a house and then you say office, and you call office space is defined by the space that is within the walls that are created. But that wall is only a barrier. The wall space interpenetrates through the wall also. It's inside, it's outside, it interpenetrates. Actually, everything exists in that all-pervading space. That's why in the Vedanta philosophy, this element of space, say, comes pretty close to as a way of conceptualizing the omnipresence of the Atman. All right. So then how did this divinity and all that, the infinite Brahman, take these forms? There's so many forms that are there of an atom, of minerals, of rocks, ancient things like, stones or living things, very minute, like a virus or bacteria or protoplasm or some insects or animals or human beings or divine beings. There's so many forms of in manifestation in this creation. How does this evolution happen? How does one evolve to the other? So that concept Swamiji is going to take up. In Vedanta, this is also there. And so there comes another idea, startling perhaps, yet a characteristically Indian idea. And if there is any idea that is common to all our sects, it is this. Therefore, I beg you to pay attention to this one idea and to remember it, for this is the very foundation of everything that we have in India. So Swamiji is trying to give the essence, the fundamental principles. And if you get them, like the concept of the Atman, its nature, its omnipresence, and all those things, so he's taking up another idea. The idea is this. You have heard of the doctrine of physical evolution preached in the Western world by the German and the English servants, what we have studied in our high school also. It tells us that the bodies of the different animals are really one. The difference that we see are but different expressions of the same series. That from the lowest worm to the highest, in the most saintly men, it is but one, the one changing into the other, and so on, going up and up, higher and higher, until it attains perfection. This is the idea of evolution. So we say, somewhere down we started as a protoplasm in this soup of creation, and at that time some life developed, and then somewhere it became the ape, and out of that ape came the human form also. That is Darwin's theory of evolution, but more from the physical, by examining the physical body, how it evolved from there. But it is all matter. Matter is at the most fundamental level. They're all made of electrons, protons, and neutrons, etc., or atoms and cells. And then in the human being, they have become more complex, So from cells, you have tissues, tissues to organs, organs to organ systems to organisms. Greater and greater complexity has evolved, and we call that evolution. So this is how Swamiji says. What do they say? They say it tells us that the bodies of the different animals are really one. Means fundamentally they are made out of same carbon and nitrogen and oxygen and all those elements. The difference is that we see are but different expressions of the same series. Shakti Vishesha. Vishesha means different manifestations of the power in that. That from the lowest worm to the highest and the most saintly man, it is but one, the one changing into the other, and so on, going up and up, higher and higher until it attains perfection. Going up and up, higher and higher means not only increasing in the complexity of the organism, but also the manifestation of the consciousness, the intelligence. So you see, the the intelligence or consciousness is more manifested in a human form than in animal form sometimes, and in gods it's even higher. We had that idea also in the Vedanta. Declares our yogi Patanjali. What does he say? This is one of the sutras there. One species, the jati, the species is called a jati in Sanskrit language, changes into another species, that is evolution. The English word is parinama. So parinama means one thing changing into the other, just as one species changes into another. However, we have a difference. Where do we differ from the Europeans? Patanjali says, uh, Prakritya Purat. This is the Sanskrit term. What does it mean? By the infilling of nature. So how does this evolution work? Evolution doesn't work by increasing the complexity, uh, as we see by the as science taught in the science we see animals have evolved into apes, ape into man, and all that. According to Vedanta, it says, okay, so the European says it is competition, survival of the fittest, and that is natural selection, sexual selection. So that forces one body to take the form of another, and the other ones, earlier ones, will die out, and the most suitable one, strongest one retains, and that is called natural selection. But here is another idea, a still better analysis, going deeper into the thing and saying, by the infilling of nature. What is meant by this infilling of nature? We admit that the amoeba goes higher and higher until it becomes a Buddha. We admit that we are at the same time as much certain that you cannot get an amount of work out of a machine unless you have to put in some shape or the other. The sum total of energy remains the same, whatever form you may take. If you want a mass of energy at one end, you have got to put it at the other end also. What he's saying that if you are seeing intelligence manifested at the higher level, it cannot come out of nothing. That intelligence would have been there, only it was not manifest. As the forms were getting evolved more and more and more, the intelligence begins to percolate and manifests itself more and more and more. That means it was all the time there. Now it is becoming more and more manifest. The example given, I'm not sure whether Swamiji gives here or elsewhere, it is like in a rice farmer wants to bring in the water into his paddock. The water is in a water canal. So what does he do? He creates a channel through which the water flows into the paddock. So that water was being blocked out. When that obstruction was removed, the water flowed in. And so nature is something like that. Nature forms a barrier. And when that barrier is removed, that consciousness that is within us flows through. Now, when we are totally dependent, very grossly identified with the gross body, then the barrier is even more. As we go to the higher level, you'll find in the mind level, the consciousness flows out better. So you feel that it's more intelligence coming out, feeling compassion and thinking, all those signs of consciousness manifesting within us. And as you go higher and higher, as the forms become purer and purer as in a divine form, then that inner light of consciousness shines even brighter and brighter and brighter. So when it's tamasic, the manifestation is very less. When it's rajasic, it's slightly better. When it's sattvic, more and more light flows through in. So Swamiji says here, the rationale he gives, you cannot get something out of nothing. It must have been there, only it was not manifest. So the sum total of the energy remains the same, whatever the forms it may take. If you want a mass of energy at one end, you have got to put it at the other end. It may be in another form, but the amount of energy that should be put in at the produced out of it must be the same. So this is more like the law of conservation of energy in physics we study. Therefore, if a Buddha is the one end of the change, the very amoeba must have been the Buddha there, but in a hidden form. If a Buddha is evolved, Buddha is the evolved amoeba, the amoeba was the involved Buddha also. So this is the idea, the evolution and involution. You cannot have evolution from one way direction. That which is evolving now must have become involved at some point. That is the idea. If this universe is the manifestation of an almost infinite amount of energy, when this universe was in the state of pralaya, it must have represented the same amount of involved energy. It cannot have been otherwise. As such, it follows that every soul, so what's the conclusion of this? Consequence of this type of thinking? As such, it follows that every soul is infinite. Means it is infinite, not in manifestation, potential is there. So that's why Swami Vivekananda says, each soul is potentially divine. From the lowest worm that crawls under our feet to the noblest and the greatest saints, all have this infinite power, infinite purity, and infinite everything is there. Only the difference is in the degree of manifestation. So this is called Shakti Vishesha. Vishesha means manifestation. Shakti, the degree of it. Or the Vishesha means degree. Shakti is the power behind it. The worm is only manifesting just a little bit of that energy. You have manifested more. Another God-man has manifested it still more. That is all the difference. But that infinite power is there all the same. Says Patanjali, like the peasant irrigating his field. Okay, Swamiji explains here. Through a little corner in his field, he brings in water from a reservoir somewhere, and perhaps he has got a little rock that prevents the water from rushing into his field. When he wants water, he has simply to open the lock and in rushes the water of its own power. So the water is there. As soon as the obstacle is removed, the water naturally flows in. The power has not to be added. It is already there in the reservoir. So every one of us, every being has as his own background such a reservoir of strength, of infinite power, infinite purity, infinite bliss, and infinite existence. Only these locks, these bodies, are hindering us from expressing what we really are to the fullest. So this is how evolution and involution is understood, explained there. It's a very important concept and a very principle to be understood, because It does not say that we are material things becoming conscious beings. No, that consciousness is present in each and every one of us, in not only us, in animals and plants. It's the foundation of the whole universe. During the time of creation, as the universe was projected, as names and forms were projected, as those layers of projections became the barriers to the manifestation of that consciousness, until we have come down to this the causal body, the body of intelligence got again laid up by the mental body, the subtle body, and that again got laid up by another body, the physical body, and the infinite power, the infinite ocean of power that is there has now become limited. Limited knowledge, limited happiness or bliss, limited lifespan, everything is limited. And the cause of these limitations are these bodies. And therefore, when we detach ourselves, give up these bodies, we regain our greater self. And that's why liberation means not being forced to take these bodies which limits the infinite power of the being that we are. So being a nobody is liberation. Okay. Any questions about this important principle of Vedanta? Are you all there?
We're all there. Swamiji is very, very interesting. The concept of evolution and involution, the other side of it.
So let us explore this. How does this, if somebody believes or takes this approach, how does this transform our understanding of what spiritual life is? Or spiritual practices, or the goal of spirituality, what does that mean? Let's have a discussion on that.
Is it like, Swamiji, is it as we develop that our practice, we have a growing sense of awareness of that innate, that power that flows through every form?
Yes. So the one important idea is a very uplifting, encouraging concept that, hey, I'm not a sinner. I'm not some useless, trivial existence. I'm that infinite being here and now. Only I'm not experiencing myself. It's a very powerful idea because it gives us tremendous amount of self-value. And then you understand, okay, how do I remove these barriers? Okay, natural evolution takes a long time. Can we expedite this process rather than coming and slowly evolving into a divine being? Can we expedite this process of evolution, the spiritual evolution? So evolution from a spiritual point of view would mean something like not a body becoming more and more sophisticated or complex, but Swami Vivekananda will say evolution means greater and greater manifestation of consciousness as the bodies become better instruments through which that consciousness can function or percolate through that. And therefore, you'll find that the basis of all the spiritual practices is to purify these three bodies. Purify this gross body, the subtle body, the causal body, so that we begin to experience that consciousness more and more and more. which means reducing the tamas, reducing the rajas, increasing the sattva element, and you'll experience that intelligence, that sharpness, the capacity to feel, to resonate, and feel oneness with other beings, which begins to manifest as compassion and kindness and empathy and love and sacrifice and unselfishness. That means we are evolving and going towards that universal self that we are. And that is what spiritual life is all about. There's no concept of worshipping some god or anything here. It is just about talking about that tremendous infinite divine power that is potentially within each and every one of us, and to acknowledge that and to consciously try to manifest them in our thoughts, in our words, in our deeds, and all that. That is how spirituality is understood from the Sankhya philosophy. The Patanjali Yoga Sutras is based on the Sankhya philosophy and the Vedanta philosophy. The Vedanta philosophy is slightly has evolved out of the Sankhya philosophy. Okay. Yes.
Swamiji, when you say we have evolved, right? So are we talking about the evolving of the potentiality of the soul from the amoeba? So I say if I'm that soul, I have evolved from the amoeba to my current human position. Is that what you're saying?
No, what it is saying is the amoeba is a body. Okay.
Right.
A insect is a body, a plant is a body, an animal, insect is a body, a deer, a dolphin, a monkey, a human body. So these are the bodies that are becoming, changing shape, becoming more and more complex. But along with that, in the series of change, you will see something else is happening there. The consciousness in each one of them is also developing or manifesting more and more, isn't it? So the consciousness is a substratum. It is like somewhere else Swamiji says suppose there's a wall. Behind that wall is a big light, but on this side is all dark. And I make a small hole. That a small stream of light comes through that. But as the hole becomes bigger and bigger, the light comes in more and more and more. Now, what is changing? The size of the hole is changing.
Yes.
But accompanied by that, the ever-present light that was there all the time is now filling into this room. So when it's saying infilling of nature, means the names and forms are changing, becoming more and more purer, and the ever-present pure consciousness, the Atman that is there all the time, that is now flowing through that, the form that is there. So can you understand? Does it make sense? So
yes.
yeah.
But I've got another, like, say, if I'm thinking of myself, right? I am this person. I am practicing Vedanta, trying to get into as you said, remove the barrier and have more light in. But at some point in time, I was somewhere else whereby I came to this stage where I could practice this. Is that soul which is traveling the same? The manifest, as you said, the energy of that potentiality of the soul is same, no matter whether it's a worm or whether it could be in the human form. The form changes, the potentiality of the energy. Maybe I'm not getting it.
No, it's good. It's just we are struggling with the language now, you see. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So
there are two
he
things.
talks of amoeba, he talks of the higher forms. So if I'm on the higher form as compared to an amoeba,
Yes.
was I at any point in stage in the lower form? And is it the same soul which has traveled? Then that would be dualism.
So when you say the same soul was traveling,
With different bodies.
Yeah, the soul here is then understood to be that consciousness identified with that body, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, so when you say soul, soul is not like something, that is putting it behind. That is the consciousness, and that consciousness is that light behind the screen. All right. So when we became an amoeba, that hole became very small. Okay,
Okay.
and the light is now a small ray comes through, and we'll say, hey, that's an amoeba. So that infinite light is present there all the time. It's not changing. Okay, but the whole is changing, but it gives a sense that the soul is changing, moving. What is moving is actually the body that is becoming more complex, or where manifestation becomes less.
So that potential's power is at the same place all the time.
Yes, it's all there. It's not actually changing. It's not even moving. So, from the ultimate Vedanta point of view, from our dualistic point of view, we have this conception that the soul is born, it comes, and then it goes somewhere to other higher planes and this and that. Okay, that is a purely dualistic idea. The Advaitic idea is, if it's infinite, where will it go? If it's something is finite, that it can move in space. But if it's infinite, it cannot go anywhere. It's omnipresent, isn't it?
Okay.
Okay. So the Vedanta idea is that the ocean is there all the time, but as the wave, it seems to be moving. You see? Okay, the wave can become very big, and we have a greater manifestation of the power like a tidal wave, or it can be a small wavelet, which still contains the water, but the manifestation of that energy or Shakti is less. What causes the greater and the lower manifestation is the size of the wave. Okay, so when it's very small, then we call it amoeba. And when it is huge, then it's a Buddha. Okay.
Right.
But the reality, when we say Atman and Paramatman, that is the ocean. The ocean is not coming, is not going anywhere. All right. So they say this name and forms are changing. That's why this world is called Nama Rupa. Nama and Rupa, name and form. What is happening is the evolution and all those things. When you say involution, evolution is the changes in the name and forms. The complexity of matter, which either increases the manifestation of the power or diminishes the present power. But the power is there all the time. We are that infinite divine being, whether we know it or not. Okay, it's just when we are too identified with this body-mind complex, then we are not aware of our conscious nature. But when the body-mind becomes purer through our evolution or through our spiritual practices, so spiritual practices are conscious methods by which we expedite the flow, or the process of this, through which this greater manifestation happens. So we are present, what we call is the amoeba is that infinite consciousness, but very minimal manifestation. Infinite light is there, very small hole. Okay, infinite ocean is there, a very small wavelet. When we say we are a human being, then the nature changed, and when we say infilling of nature, then the light of consciousness shone through more. Does it make sense?
Swamiji,
Bhavana?
in relative to like amoeba is the smallest organism, okay, that's okay. So in relative to the ocean and the wave, can we call amoeba the ocean?
Potentially the ocean.
Because
See,
I mean, like amoeba develops like from evolution. I mean, amoeba
no, no.
goes to
The amoeba state is that the amoeba is a form, isn't it?
yeah.
And here the form is that little wave, but a very small wave. So what does that small wave? It manifests the infinity of the ocean in a very limited way, isn't it?
Yeah.
So there are two things. One is that ever-present infinite consciousness. That's a substratum of everything, right from the highest manifestation of Buddha, which is the highest, the form has become so transparent that inner light shines in all its splendor and magnificence, to the other side where there's a amoeba, where that inner light of consciousness is hardly manifest, very little manifest. What is the difference? Or the form of the amoeba restricts the manifestation. That consciousness, the form of the Buddha, manifests at the other high end. But as the Atman, as the foundation behind all of us, each and every one of us, it's the same ocean. So you will find that what we are trying to do is in this study, if you understand this, we are taking the focus away from these forms, which is our everyday experience, different plants, animals, human beings, and all that, and acknowledging that infinite presence behind the forms as the more fundamental reality. And then trying to say, oh, this is what evolution is there, and I would like to go beyond all forms into the formless. In the formless, the whole ocean is experienced. Does it make some sense? Kevi?
Yes, Swamiji. I was just trying to carry on from the previous speaker, like amoeba. Like amoeba is the smallest organism, and then you say go to Buddha. So that's moving from one stage to the other. But behind that is something else.
Yeah, so Buddha is a form, amoeba is a form.
Yeah.
And behind both those forms, it's just like there's a screen. Buddha is a bigger screen, bigger hole through which so much light is flowing through. Amoeba is a very small hole in the screen. A little light is through. What we are saying is behind, there's the same light that is coming through both those holes. But what we call the amoeba, it's a limited version of it. The Buddha is a greater manifestation of it. And as the hole becomes bigger or smaller, accordingly the light flows in. So what is changing? The size of the hole is changing. Is the light behind changing? No. The light is unchanging, is infinite all the time, but the wave, the name and the form, or the hole in the screen, or the wave, that is becoming either more and more manifesting, transparent, or on the other side in the amoeba, it is hardly manifest in there. So this understanding or this perspective, this is this Vedanta perspective of it. How do we apply this in our everyday life, in acknowledging everything as we deal with people, we deal with nature, that infinite consciousness is present in all of us. Yes, we are slightly better than animals, in that we have a slightly advanced body form through which more intelligence and that light of consciousness is shining. But we are not anywhere as close to the ultimate, beings through which that light was shining in all its glory. And spiritual life is all about expediting this process of evolution. Swami Vivekananda talks about what takes normally a human being so many lifetimes to reach that state. Spiritual life is fast tracking that, so that in this lifetime we can cover the journey that would normally be taken through so many lifetimes.
Excuse me, Swamiji.
Mm.
You need a mind. Does amoeba have a mind? You need a mind to be able to realize things, intelligence and all that. Does amoeba have a mind, or it has a very, very minute brain, whereby...
What we call mind is the manifestation of that consciousness, isn't it? Isn't it?
The chitta.
Yeah. So there's that consciousness. When it is little bit involved, later on we See, amoeba has a sense of perception. If you put into some chemical, then it moves away from it. All those type of things. It's able to sense its environment around and all that. But that consciousness later on becomes more and more evolved. In insects and animals, we call it a mind. But the mind is only a manifestation of consciousness through that matter. But at that stage in amoeba, you might not call a mind, but that consciousness definitely is present there. See, in a human being, it's called a mind, and a little bit more it's more refined, it's called buddhi and all that. But important thing is that consciousness is present as much behind the amoeba as behind the highest manifestation, Buddha.
So that's the evolvement.
Yeah, and what is changing? Not that consciousness is changing, the change is in the bodies. As it
Body.
becomes more purer and purer and purer, the inner light shines more and more and more. And then the focus comes, what's spiritual life about? It's about purification of the body and the mind. That means so that we can manifest more and more of that consciousness that's within us. And all these yogas, jnana, bhakti, karma, dhyana, etc. are all different technologies or paths or methods that have been developed to expedite this process.
Thank you, Swamiji.
All right. So
Swamiji, I just want to say one thing which I thought was exceptionally, it was really, really good. Made my thought very clear. The purpose of our spiritual practice is to reduce the influence of tamas, rajas, and even sattva, all the gunas of prakriti on us, so
yeah.
that we can awaken pure consciousness, purusha within us. So it's so spiritual practice is about aims to, we are trying to disentangle ourselves from prakriti,
Yes.
go towards the purusha.
Yeah.
Brilliant. I think this is a very good idea. I'm going to hang on to. Thank you so much.
And so when you go about your different practices, when you're doing your puja, you're doing your study, like this. So this is called Gyan Yajna. Okay, so now we're using our intelligence, but trying to understand uh, subjectively about who we are and what's this life and is this journey and what's all that happening, or bhakti or karma and all that. But through all of them, that singular purpose is there. How do I break the shackles, come out of the cocoon that has limited us? And yeah, and that's why giving up all these limitations. And that's what renunciation is really.
Yeah.
Okay, and if we keep that in mind, that's the essence of our spiritual practices, then all your rituals and ceremonies and pujas and festivals are all there. But we understand what is the purpose and try to think through how those things facilitate this evolution, this process.
Yeah.
And then you'll know when we engage in these practices, are we getting the benefit out of it or not in that sense? Yeah.
Right.
Please read this. This is a very important idea. It's one of the fundamental, and try to think about its application, not only through spiritual practices, but in everything. That is the one thing. If that idea comes, this principle gets hold of you, that if I am that infinite being here and now, and that all these limitations of this body and mind and these desires and prarabdha and everything are so many shackles which are obstructions to the manifestation of my divine nature, then it's like a lion that feels it has been in a cage and it wants to break that cage so that it comes out in its freedom. When that urge, takes possession of the soul, that I want to be free, and that would be the spirit of Vedanta. Then that fire of self-realization or freedom, mumukshatvam, really becomes ignited. All right, please read this, and then we will carry on from here next time. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मामृतं गमय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरि ओम तत्सत् श्रीरामकृष्णार्पणमस्तु।